Test on the audio. Good morning. We are live.
Yay! With sound working too.
Yes.
Okay.
Amazing.
Terrific.
Good morning, Commissioner. Chairwoman.
Good morning, Commissioner York.
Yes.
Is this a different format? My screen looks different for some reason.
Your screen's the same.
Roy, is Jillian with you today?
Morning, David.
Good morning. We are live.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioner Meal.
Good morning, Erica.
How are you?
I am well.
Are you in Tucson?
I am in Colorado.
Oh, wonderful. I'm heading to Colorado in July.
Aha.
I'm going to visit where I went to college. I went to college in Colorado Springs.
Well, which school?
Colorado College.
That's a good school. We looked at that with my older son. He ended up all over the place, but that was a really good school. Yeah.
I loved it. Good morning.
Shereen, we're in the same background.
That is funny.
Yeah.
And Commissioner Lerner, first of all, we cannot hear you.
Unmute.
Second of all, we're live.
Thank you.
And third of all, does one of you want to change, or do you like?
I think the
I'll
things were
change it.
together. I'll change mine.
No, I'm getting it.
All right.
Got it. I had a different one. Well, I will tell you that my computer that I normally use is backing up right now. So I had to rapidly change, and I will be probably switching back over there. I'm looking to see which one we're doing. There we go.
I actually like the idea that we have commissioners on opposite sides that think very, similarly. I think it's a really good look.
Well, I think Commissioner York, I think you usually have a different background, don't you?
Yeah, the one you just chose.
That's why I try not to use that one, because that's the one I know you use.
Well, and I got on early and the glare was so bad with that one in this room. Switch to one that's not as glary.
Okay. Well, yeah, I don't know what's on my other one, so when I switch over, we'll see.
We're back in the library.
And we never know the background of Vice Chair Watchman, because we never know exactly what part of the state he'll be in.
That's right.
I think Commissioner Watchman is personally showing the state where the deficits are in our Wi-Fi, our hotspots. We could just track him and figure out where we need to work on.
Commissioner Meal, you have a different background today too.
I'm up in Colorado for a little bit,
Nice. That's great.
and I'll be jumping rooms midway because I've got things going on at our house here. So I'll have a different background yet later. And I'm not techie enough to pick these auto backgrounds. So.
Well, I'll be switching computers too, so we'll all have.
Good morning,
Hi,
Brian.
Brian.
Morning.
I think everybody's in a good mood today because the Suns won. That's the first item on my agenda.
That was a good third quarter.
Doesn't it feel good to have basketball back in Phoenix? It's all of Arizona. I don't want to say Phoenix. It's terrific. Oh, there's Vice Chair Watchman.
Good morning.
Good morning. I think we have our entire team together. So with that, I think we can get going. And the most important item being just congratulating the Phoenix Suns for a fantastic win last night and for putting most of us, I'd say, in a really good mood. So anyway, with that, agenda item number 1, call to order and roll call. 1A, call for quorum. It is 8 a.m. on Tuesday, June 8th, 2021. I call this meeting of the Independent Redistricting Commission to order. For the record, the Executive Assistant, Valerie Newman, will be taking roll. When your name is called, please indicate you are present. If you are unable to respond verbally, we ask that you please type your name. Val.
Vice Chair Watchman,
Present.
Commissioner Lerner,
Present.
Commissioner Meal,
Present.
Commissioner York,
Present.
Chairperson Newberg.
Present.
And for the record, we also have our Executive Director, Brian Schmidt, our Public Information Officer, Michelle Crank. From Snell and Wilmer, we have Brett Johnson and Eric Spencer. And from Ballard Spar, we have Roy Herrera, Jillian Andrews, and we have our transcriptionist, Debbie Wilkes. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you so much. And please note for the minutes, a quorum is present. Agenda item 1B, call for notice. Val, was the notice and agenda for the commission meeting properly posted 48 hours in advance of today's meeting?
Yes, it was.
Thank you very much. Agenda item number 2, approval of minutes from June 1st, 2021. We have just the general session minutes. Is there any discussion? I'll entertain a motion to approve the general session minutes from June 1st of 2021.
Commissioner Meal moves to approve the minutes.
A second?
Vice Chair Watchman seconds.
Any further discussion? With that, a vote. Vice Chair Watchman,
Aye.
Commissioner Meal,
Aye.
Commissioner Lerner,
Aye.
Commissioner York,
Aye.
Commissioner Newberg is an aye, and with that, the minutes are approved 5-0. We will move to agenda item number 3, opportunity for public comments, which are now opening. Public comment will open for a minimum of 30 minutes and remain open until the adjournment of the meeting. Comments will only be accepted electronically in writing on the link provided in the notice and agenda for this public meeting and will be limited to 3,000 characters. Please note, members of the commission may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.01H, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. And with that, we move to agenda item 4, discussion on public comments received prior to today's meeting. I open the floor first to my colleagues. Well, I have, a few thoughts. Number one, we definitely heard people about concern about the short notice of town halls and our public hearings. We will talk more about that later in our agenda. But please know there will be many opportunities to be interacting with the commission, more details to follow. There were also a lot of comments about the idea of inviting the majority and minority leaders in our state legislature. And that too, we will discuss later in this agenda. And I think those were really probably the two items that spoke to the public the most. And unless there's further discussion on that, we'll move to agenda item number 5, Executive Director's Report and discussion and possible action on thereof. And I turn it over to Director Schmidt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I would like to take a second just to let our Public Information Officer, Michelle Crank, introduce herself to you all and the public. So Michelle, if you just want to say hi and give a quick intro. I think she's on mute.
I guess I am on mute. So good morning again, commissioners and the general listening public. I am so looking forward to working with each and every single one of you throughout this process, and have been working very diligently with Brian on implementing some things that you all had discussed previously. So again, I look forward to working on this. I come to you with an extensive background in public information with various different organizations and entities. So again, I look forward to working with each of you. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, so on the office, our scheduled move date is still June 26th. Still working out all the small pieces, but we should be fully in our new office just 5 doors down in the next few weeks. The budget is still working its way through the legislature. They're negotiating. I'm sure you all have probably seen. In regards to our budget, I will have some year-end items for you all next week. Some initial legal bills and mapping expenses before the end of the year. The two of the 3 positions have been posted online, the deputy and the outreach coordinator. So if anyone's interested in applying, they are online. In regards to the IT migration, I've been working with ASSET, the Arizona Strategic Enterprise Technology folks at ADOA, on the migration project. It's taking a little longer than expected. The vendor that they were hoping could be our vendor recently signed an exclusivity deal with Google, so they only migrate people to the Google platform and not away from it. So we're working to find some other vendors who we can hopefully get on board sooner rather than later. On the website, shortly we'll have the public records request form on the website, so folks can just go online and fill out the public records request there. And then, so I think the biggest part of the report today was the tentative travel schedule. I thought it would be important just to put together somewhat of a framework to get a conversation going. I know everyone's kind of anxious to get the dates nailed down and get out and speak to the public. Yeah, Commissioner Lerner.
Before we jump into that discussion, could I ask a question on the positions? What is the closing date for those positions?
They are open until filled. There's no set date on them yet.
Okay. Do you anticipate having a certain point when you start to look at applications, just so the public understands that the timing of this if there's an interest.
Yeah, absolutely. As why I have it open is just I want to see how many applications we get and just see how the process works along. I'll include you all along the way and send applications and interview questions, and like we've done with the previous positions.
Well, I was just wondering, are you going to wait 1 week to start review? You're going to review 2 weeks? I'm kind of curious on when you'll start your review process.
1 to 2 weeks. I think it depends how many applications we get.
Okay. All right. And then the other question, thank you. The other question I had before we jump into travel, which will be a longer discussion, is on the website. Is it possible for us to not only post the minutes, but the transcripts as they are completed? I know that they're a little, they're not always ready at the same time, but I think it's helpful so that people don't have to go watch the YouTube videos if they're curious about something. Can
Absolutely.
we be adding that to the website?
So that is something that I've discussed with Chairwoman Newberg and the attorneys before. I believe they had some concerns. So if anyone from legal counsel would like to speak to posting the transcripts.
So this is Brett Johnson. Just so last commission, definitely they posted the transcripts, but one thing that and a lot of times those were not timely, and that was definitely an issue. Definitely by the time the commission was done with the substantive work, it was there. The only it's not a concern, but just want to make sure the commission's aware of is that because it becomes a public document when you're posting it, and there could be inconsistencies with basic. Although our transcription person is awesome in every single regard, those still have to be reviewed for a legal review to ensure that they actually match up to what the public record is. We could enter into some sort of disclaimer on that not to rely on the transcripts, and you have to rely on the actual video, which is the true thing. But I think the only concern really was from a cost standpoint, and to ensure that there was consistency between the audio / video and the actual transcripts, which is what we do when we're in litigation purposes.
Okay, so if we put in a disclaimer.
I mean, that was my concern. I mean, the amount of people power that would be required to ensure that the transcripts perfectly married the video, we would be legally obligated to vote to say that happened. I mean, and why would we subject ourselves to that, if we don't have to? But it's up to legal in terms of a disclaimer. I mean, I don't know if the disclaimer would hold.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it had been mentioned on one of the public comments, and just the idea of if somebody's wanting to try to look up something that happened. I'm not tied to it, but I think it is something we should take a closer look at it. I agree. We don't want the people power of having to be sure that it's exactly precise. But if a disclaimer would take care of some of that, maybe we can do that. Maybe we can find out if that would work. And if it would, then we could post them. And if not, then maybe we rethink that.
And Commissioner Lerner, this is Brett Johnson again, and let us take a look at that as to what a disclaimer would entail and what kind of protections. Obviously, as we've talked about before, you can never eliminate the risk, but we can try to mitigate the best as possible. And so long as the public knows that it's the minutes of the meetings as well as the audio video of the commission that is controlling, then we're not going to get into no offense again to the recorder, typographical errors if we have to get in front of a judge as to what was meaning.
That sounds
and
good.
This is right. The only alternative, I suppose, is that when we talk about posting them quickly after the meeting, if the longer time period or runway we have for that, the more time we have to make sure that it is correct, right? So I suppose there's a difference between posting the minutes the day after or a week after, right? So it could be posted, but it may take a little bit of time. So that's something to consider as well, because I think that's what happened in the last commission. They were posted, but it wasn't immediately after the actual meeting.
Sure, I understand that. If we can just look at it, and if it works, it does, and if it doesn't, that's fine too. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Those were my 2 questions.
Okay. Any other questions before we talk travel schedule? All right. So with legal counsel and our mapping consultants, we put together a very tentative schedule, and we're hoping to get some input today so we could start finalizing some of these dates. I've heard from a couple of the commissioners about dates that might not work, or just individual requests. So if there's anything else anyone has, I'd appreciate some input.
Madam Chair. Good morning. This is Vice Chair Watchman. For June 17th, you have Coconino County. One of the commissioners, Board of Supervisors, called me and indicated that the county is not going to really be open for public meetings until July 1st. And so, but the county is certainly willing and, in fact, eager to be a part of that. And so the only challenge for them is that I think July 1st is when public meetings can happen. Likewise with Navajo, we have June 24th for Navajo County and Apache County. I think the last time they had their meeting in St. Michael's, which is near Window Rock. At this point, the nomination is not open yet for public forums. And so I would really like to have a hearing on the reservation. The option right now only is off Navajo, which I guess would be, Holbrook or St. John's. And so we may have to split that up. So, I think June may be out of the question maybe for these 2 meetings. And so the other thing is just logistics. I'm sure you're reaching out to folks. It'd be nice to have the actual location and the time. I don't know if we have a time. I saw in the last go around that some hearings or meetings were in the afternoon, and some were at night, and then some were on a Saturday or Sunday. So I think we need to think about that as well. What's convenient for the public to meet with us and to provide their comments. And so it looked to me the last time most of the bulk of the meetings were in the evening time. So we need to think about that. So we'll probably, my sense is probably have to get an idea of the venue where it is, what time, and then that'll kind of dictate, whether or not these scheduled Thursdays are good, and then whether or not the areas are actually open for public meetings. And so, despite the governor's rulings, the tribes, for example, they have their own laws to follow. So Navajo, I think, Powhatan, and some of the tribes, they may not be open right now. So some thoughts to think about as we further refine this schedule. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Lerner. I'm glad to see us putting together a schedule and getting, we're all getting ready to get started to go out there. I would like to just talk a little bit of also in similar vein with Vice Chair Watchman, potentially condense this a little bit instead of over 2 months. See if we could have more meetings per week to try to condense the schedule. I did look last time, and I'm not saying we should do the same as last time by any means, but they had 15 meetings in a matter of 3 weeks. They really condensed it as part of it, so then they were able to actually take some time afterwards to kind of think about the comments. In this case, we're stretching them out over about 2.5 months with 2 per week. which may be okay. But I also think we might want to look at some Saturdays as well for people in terms of work schedule. Also travel schedule for some folks in the more rural areas. If they do want to attend, they might have to drive an hour or two to come to a meeting. And if they are having to drive that, it might be better on a Saturday for them rather than in the evening after a meeting ends at 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock than to have to drive home from that if they want to attend in person. I also think our technology is so much better than last time that we can do a lot to maybe have some opportunities, some ways for us to both have people come in person as well as call in or Zoom in some way. In looking at last time, I know they said that they had some remote. I don't know how that worked. I have no idea. But I noticed, for example, they had one in Yuma and then it said Parker and San Luis remotely, so that people didn't have to drive. So if our technology is up to it, it'd be nice if we could sort of condense, and that way we can actually increase the number of places for people. And I think that's probably what you were thinking when you put things like Coconino, Northern Arizona, that you're actually thinking of grouping people. I would assume, Director Schmidt, that's part of what your logic was.
Yeah, absolutely. This is just a very bare bones, get the conversation going kind of schedule, and then we can build from there.
So from my perspective, it might be easier for us as we jump into this to start actually in either Pima or Maricopa County, because it's local and we're here. We can kind of work out the bugs of how the system will work a little bit before we do start our travel in some of those areas, just because of as we're working through the process. These are just some thoughts that I had as part of it. On a bigger issue, because the order of things, I mean, I can't make all of the days either. There's some, but I know that we don't all have to be at all of them. And maybe some of us could call in, Zoom in or something, or I think it's important for us to talk about how we structure the meetings before we jump in next week to our first meeting, because we haven't really had that conversation either of how are we going to hold the meetings? What are we expecting in terms of the amount of time that somebody speaks? Things like that, the basic parameters for those public meetings. I think how should the meetings be run as part of that? So, that's part of my thought too, is that maybe this discussion can include sort of what's a regular agenda for the meeting. What should the public expect if they attend in terms of what their opportunities to comment would be, as well as what they expect from the commissioners. These are just some initial thoughts.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner Lerner. And I think that can be part of this conversation, and probably should be. Last time, I know they had a presentation by the mapping firm at the start, and then open it up to the public. They had a little more data than we did at that point. So yeah, I think it should be a little more structured, and we really let the public know what we're looking to hear.
And if there are ideas from the commissioners now about what you would like to see during this listening tour, because I do think it's a unique tour. We don't have data. And so, I just want to reassure the public that as much as there'll be a lot of focus and attention, and it's, great opportunity to communicate to the commissioners over the summer, much of this is going to be repeated when we have data, and we're going to come back to your communities with more specific data. And so in some ways, we could almost see this as, just additive in terms of data collection. But yeah, I mean, let's have, from my perspective at, public meetings over the summer, I'm particularly interested in hearing who feels that they're a community of interest. Why are they a community of interest? How have the districts performed for them in the past? What do they feel has not, worked for them? And so I do think it would be helpful to have a little guidance to, be trying to find the information that would be helpful for us to do the end product. I know our mapping firm will like to work on some kind of stock presentation with the guidance of a legal. So yeah, I think it's exciting. What other ideas do people have?
This is Commissioner Meal. I strongly agree with the items that you outlined, Chairwoman. And I think the communities of interest and how the current districts have worked or not worked, people's comments about how they're grouped with or not grouped in a way that they think are important. Since we don't have data, those are going to be by far the most important things that we're going to hear from the public. And I also agree with trying to condense and group our meetings more than what this schedule shows, and still trying to get them in by that August 16th date, so that when we do have data, now we can really turn to that.
Can I just ask a question? And I don't mean anything by the question. I'm just curious. What's the value of condensing the schedule as opposed to spreading it out? We have a broad team. We have the 5 commissioners. We have an entire staff. We have, legal counsel. We have now, more and more people. Help me understand what we get out of a condensed schedule versus a broad, a more relaxed schedule.
Commissioner Meal again. I think we just heard from Commissioner Watchman some concerns on some of the June meetings up north, and I think we need to respect that. And then I do think if you can condense it somewhat, that it may be easier for some of us to make several meetings back to back, as opposed to having them all spread out. But I don't feel strongly on that.
So it actually, what you're saying is condensing it means somewhat postponing it a little bit to give us advanced time to figure out what works for the communities that we're going out to visit with. Now I get it. Okay.
And I will say I agree with everything you said in terms of what we're looking for from the public. I was thinking too, in addition to that, guidance on, do we give everybody 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, some things like that, so people come prepared, because if they know they have a 3-minute speaking time, they prepare for that. And so there's little things like that we could tweak as part of getting that organized. But in terms of what we're hoping to hear, I agree with everything you've said. With regard to communities of interest and what has worked and what hasn't. We'd also, I assume, want people to identify themselves with who they are, how they're related to the district that they're in or into the location that they're in. So to me, the priority should be the people who reside in that general area for speaking versus people who are coming from outside of that. Not that everybody shouldn't have an opportunity, but if we're in the Safford area, I'd rather hear from people in that general region first before people who are coming from an outside area, just as a thought, as part of that. So, and in terms of condensing, I think I do think we need to give some opportunities for these areas to also get the word out as part of it. For me, this is just my own thing. When I hear, it's easier for me to kind of think about everything I've heard versus what I heard a month and a half ago and thinking about it, that much later. If I hear things in a shorter amount of time frame, I can kind of do some comparisons and sort of see what patterns that we're hearing. I'm not tied to how we condense or any of that, but that's part of why I was thinking of condensing it a little bit instead of spreading it out.
And this is Commissioner Meal. I think one of the other dynamics that we can anticipate is that many people will share the comments. So someone will speak and hopefully speak well, and other people will agree with it. And I think we need a technological way for people to just let us know there's someone else who agrees with what was just said without making them come and repeat the whole thing again. So if there's a way we can handle that, I think that would really be helpful.
Absolutely. That's a good idea, Commissioner Meal. One other item that I talked about with the mapping firm was they have the ability to put together a survey that we could give to people ahead of time. So they could circle the areas they're talking about so that it could be displayed on the screen when they get up to speak. So we're working through that piece, and I'll check with them to see if there's some way that we could integrate that as well.
Thank you.
As another question, just as we're thinking about this, have we looked into having things like ADA requirements, sign language, things like that as part of these?
Yes, we are looking into that, and thank you for your suggestion on that, Commissioner Lerner. We're looking into that, and court reporters and translators and all of that. That will be an element of it.
And I'll just say I like the idea of having something that maybe, as Commissioner Meal said, if we have sort of a running list of maybe comments people have made that is on the screen somehow, then somebody might sit back and go, well, everything I wanted to say is done. I don't need to come up and say that. And they could maybe just submit a card that says agreed or something. I think that's a great idea as part of it. Although I know a lot of people they want to hear numbers, right? How many, maybe at the end of the meeting, there can be a little bit of a discussion of, do most people agree with the following things? And that way instead of them coming up, they can get a vote. I don't know. That's part of where I guess we need to think about it.
Absolutely. And with the survey too, we could look into a after meeting report that people could comment on, something like that as well. So
it's a great idea.
Yeah, I agree. People are going to want to make sure that we as commissioners know there is another person who agrees with it. So they need to be able to register that agreement in some formal fashion.
And related to this, although it's slightly different, and this may be a question for Michelle, our public information officer. What is our strategy to ensure that we're tapping into the whole state, not just people who know about us, but for us going and finding them? That's my concern. My concern is understanding the people who would otherwise just fall under the radar. And so, in our conversation, Brian, Michelle, I'd like to hear what kind of ideas we have to make sure we fully understand our state.
I think you're muted, Michelle.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Erica. I think both Brian and I are looking at doing a number of things and making sure that we do reach the entire state and we do reach most of our, if not all of our public, and even concerned with the areas that Commissioner Watchman had addressed earlier. We know that there has not always been that broad overreach to the entire state of Arizona. There are some communities and some areas that that have been missed in the past. And so I think we're going to utilize the aggressive approach of doing media releases, media alerts, public alerts, and making sure that that we fall within the legal parameters when we do utilize our social media technology, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, or any of our social media technology. We need to make sure that we meet with our legal team, and as individuals might comment on a lot of those social media aspects. We know that social media has gotten to be quite extensive over the pandemic, and virtual Zoom meetings and those types of meetings have become an even greater part of our lives and reaching out to the public and to the audience. So we will be exploring a lot of those pieces. And as you look at social media, you can do a target audience. You can target certain areas within your social media parameters and get the information out to a certain segment, to a certain group of individuals, to a certain demographics. And so we'll utilize a lot of those pieces once we get, the legal opinion, and making sure that we're staying within those parameters and not stepping outside of those parameters. And I think I worked with Director Brian in putting together a slide presentation, and we will have that slide presentation available, whether it's a video type presentation on our social media. So I do believe that within that slide presentation, it outlines the parameters of our comments and what we're looking for from the communities that we will be visiting. And again, looking at translators, bringing in translators, and utilizing probably a lot of virtual type situations for those communities that we cannot, hold public meetings as of yet. Like Commissioner Watchman had mentioned with some of the tribal communities, they're not allowing non-tribal residents into those communities as of yet. So we'll be addressing some of those areas as well. So I'm working, pretty diligently. We've already drafted a press release, and I've given that to Director Brian, so he can take a look at, and we will utilize a lot of our social media once we get the approval from our legal team on the parameters. So I hope that kind of gives you a little bit of steps that we're looking at, Commissioner.
It does. Thank you. It gives me confidence. I appreciate that your eyes are on that and there's a plan. So thank you.
Michelle, this is Commissioner Lerner. Just, I assume also you'll be working closely with wherever we are. So if we're in Flagstaff, for example, you'd work closely with Flagstaff to publicize, the city, the county in that area to help publicize those things, as well as any local organizations, the Chamber of Commerce and any others that would be interested in this and getting the word out as well.
Yes, Commissioner Lerner, I'll be working with each of those communities before we go out to those communities and making sure that they have the ability to get our information out, whether it's via their local publication and or their local media and or their local social media. I think a lot of the communities have a social media platform, whether, like I said, it's Facebook or something of that nature, making sure that we get the information out to those communities in advance, and they have the ability to engage their communities.
Yeah, I think it'll be important to really tap into those systems that are already built and utilize them to get as many people notified and aware of what we're doing as possible. One other thing that we could do is, as we set up the listening tour, we could reach out to local reporters and see if they'd be interested in interviewing any of you ahead of time to maybe get some more coverage. Just another thought.
And we'll be sending out those media alerts at least a week before the meeting to let the communities know, and those media alerts will definitely go to the local publications, the local social media. So just to let you all know that the information will be presented at least a week before our meeting is scheduled.
This is Commissioner Lerner, just as a suggestion that if we can finalize this list and location and get that out to the media early, people can plan, because 1 week may be difficult for people to plan ahead. They may need more time than that, especially in the more rural areas, where it may take more of an effort to be able to attend. So I think that's part of, as much as I want to get on the road and listen, like the rest of us, I think that's part of why I think we need to work a little bit more on the structure, getting things finalized, at least to have maybe the first 3 or 4 meetings finalized, so we can a couple weeks out, so we can get that information out and have the schedule pretty well finalized of where we're going to be. And I know there's a lot of work that has to be done for this, in terms of finding locations and working with local officials and local contents. It's a lot of work to put together a meeting schedule like this, and I appreciate all the hard work that you'll be doing for this. But that would be my suggestion, is maybe we put off this for a couple weeks to give you the chance to really work through those details, and then we can set the meeting schedule. And then as we're looking at the proposal for numbers of meetings, my only other suggestion would be to consider adding another meeting in the Phoenix area. We are a very large area and we only have 2 meetings, and it might be helpful to have a third, whether it's doing it east, central, west, or however it is that you'd want to schedule it. But that might be helpful to have another one because of the population size. And I see that there's one in Pima County, and I'm not sure if there's a second one, but again, because Tucson is a very large area, we want to be sure to have good coverage in the southern part as well. Not that we want the coverage all over the state, but those high population centers may need more than 1 or 2 in some way. We might want to just add 1 or 2 more.
Sure, I will definitely look into adding that. Mayor Gallego did reach out yesterday to offer the use of any city facilities for us to use for our meetings. So.
Commissioner Lerner,
and that'll be helpful in adding another 1 or 2.
Commissioner Lerner, I want to thank you for acknowledging the amount of work that has already gone into this. I know it's frustrating for people that, there's not, a lot of advanced timing, but, Michelle, what is this, your 5th day on board? And, prior to Michelle on board, we have Director Schmidt, basically running from, department to department to department. And but what's exciting is that we are kind of all coming together. We have these additional hires coming on board, and I think it'll be a little smoother moving forward, and it is exciting. The other thing I just want to mention that I think this conversation also helps us understand the value of pre-planning. And given that we know now, I don't want to say no, we can estimate when we're going to get that initial grid map. We can have more, forethought about our travel schedule and alert the public well more in advance, and have things a bit more organized in the fall.
Madam Chair, this is Vice Chair Watchman. A couple other comments. I noticed that on some of our weekly meetings, we're combining it with a town hall. I'm inclined just to have the meeting only, and then look at the Thursday, and maybe, especially if we truncate our meetings in July, I think that's where we're headed. We look at our tour to start on a Thursday and a Saturday, and for the Thursdays, I think preferably in the evening. It's probably a good time. And then, of course, if we look at a Saturday, which I think may have to happen then midday. So, but I'd rather have our meetings just on business at hand and separate that from the hearings. So, because I noticed that we have, like, for example, on June 22nd, it's combined, July 13th and July 27th. So just a thought, I'd like to have it separate so that we just have the meeting only and get the business done, because we're gonna have to meet to obviously decide on, approve different things like expenditures and whatnot. So my thought is to keep the hearing separate from our weekly meetings. And then look at Thursdays. Thursdays is a good time for me, especially in the evenings. And if we do add a couple more meetings for like Maricopa County, then we consider a Saturday, likewise with Tucson.
If we're going to be regularly scheduling weekend meetings, I think we may need to have occasionally Saturday, occasionally Sunday. You know, different religious groups observe Sabbath on different days. There's a lot of sensitivities there. So you know, maybe we don't want it to be just every week, a Thursday, Saturday, because somebody who works on Thursday and is Jewish, then oops, you can't do that. So, you know, we'll take a look at maybe having enough flexibility to tap into, you know, the broader public.
And if I could ask maybe on the Tuesdays, and I may not have understood this correctly, I thought we were actually we would have a regular meeting, and then that evening there might be another meeting. We weren't combining them, right? Or were we? Because that was my impression. So I may be misunderstanding how the schedule was reading, but I was thinking we would actually, it was just we would do our regular meeting in the morning, or I guess we could do it in the afternoon, and then we would break and then have an evening meeting. But were you thinking of combining those?
Those proposed town halls, yes. So those proposed town halls were combining business and our regular meetings to give an online, to give people the option to participate online with focuses on different regions. I know it makes it a little more difficult to do that being online, but it was just giving an option. But if the commission would like to just do business meetings on Tuesday, that's definitely workable.
It may be more if you think about, you know, I'm thinking in July, how much regular business are we going to be talking about beyond the substance of what we're doing? And so if you have, let's say, just an hour and a half of business, if we're all blocking off our schedule anyway, and it's virtual, maybe it's more efficient to combine them.
And Chair Newberg, that's what I would be okay with that. We potentially could move those business meetings into the afternoon instead of the morning, if we have short ones, and do something like from 3:30 to 5 for business, take a break, and then at 6 o'clock come back for evening meetings, and then have the public meeting at that time, if it's virtual. Something like, I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there as a possibility. As you say, we may not have as much business, but it might be an opportunity then for the public, instead of dividing up our day, morning and then evening. Because I agree with Vice Chair Watchman that evening meetings would probably be better for people who work and can maybe attend at that time as well. So if we did it that way, it might not be as difficult.
I'm good with combining meetings, and if the timing that Commissioner Lerner just said works better for the public, then I'm fine with doing it that way.
Yeah. Unless anyone else has anything, thank you for all your comments and thoughts on the tour. We'll work on putting together a little bit more condensed schedule and adding some of those locations that you mentioned, and come back with a full plan for what it would look like, timing, location, all those kinds of things. So we'll get working on it.
But Vice Chair Watchman, it looked like you may have had a comment.
No, I was just going to comment that I agree with my fellow Commissioner Neal and Lerner that for our Tuesday regular meetings, move that to the afternoon, have a regular meeting in the afternoon, and then move into a public hearing, or vice versa. I think that'll work. And so, combining hearing with the regular meeting could get in the way. So if we can separate that and switch, I'm okay with that. So I just want to make, my point is that I'd like to have a meeting just for business, and then we separate that with another meeting that day, and that meeting is a hearing. So I'm agreeing with Commissioner Lerner and Commissioner Meal. I think that'll work for me.
And this Commissioner Meal, Brian, I would suggest that if you put together a revised version 2 of a possible meeting schedule, that you don't need to wait for next week fully. You could circulate that to the commissioners and start getting feedback as soon as you're able to do that, and that might help you then refine that prior to next week.
Absolutely. We will start working on it once we're done with this meeting this morning, and then start circulating it.
Thank you.
And again, this is Commissioner Lerner. I do want to thank you all for your hard work on getting this started. It's been something we've been thinking about, so I appreciate the work you've put in. And the other last mention is that you might want to just think about, since we're able to do this now more efficiently than in the past, maybe having 1 or 2 that are just virtual meetings in general that would allow people to attend. You could potentially adding that. But as you're thinking through this again, thanks again for the work.
And also having hybrid events. I mean, it doesn't have to be one or the other. I mean, it's if you're going to go out into a rural community and you're physically there, why not open it up to the residents who can't physically come in? Thank you, Director Schmidt.
Thank you, Chairman.
And you have, so I think there's a item H, discussion of
yes.
state. Yes, you have a couple more items.
Thank you. Speaking with our legal team, they thought it would be a good idea to reach out to the state's Chief Information Security Officer to see if they would be willing to come and do a presentation for us, to just kind of let us know what to look out for and the resources that they could provide to make sure once we have the data, everything is secure and we're in a good spot. So I have an email into them asking them to join us for a presentation. So hopefully they will be able to in the next few weeks. And then I think the only other item was the training of staff. Valerie and I have completed all of our training. Michelle is working through hers now, so that should be done shortly. I think that is all I have for today.
Okay, and any update on the mapping software training for commissioners, staff, and legal counsel from
Yes, I've been working with our mapping consultant to set up a training with ESRI for you all and the public. So that'll be in the next couple weeks.
Okay, excellent. In addition to the cybersecurity, I think we also have to unfortunately be sensitive to physical security when we are out and about. And so, we will look into what kind of precautions are necessary.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you so much, Director Schmidt, for that report and for your hard work. With that, we will move to agenda item number 6, discussion and possible action regarding invitation to legislative leaders to present on constitutional criteria and role of legislature report. If necessary to go into executive session, I'll explain and provide the rationale. But prior to that, I'll open it up to discussion with my colleagues. I alluded earlier that was a hot spot in the public comments. So updated thoughts, reactions.
This is Commissioner Meal. I agree with many of the public comments that it's not a good idea to have the legislators present. I think they have an official role to present after we have draft maps, and I think to have them sooner than that is not wise.
This is Vice Chair Watchman. I agree with Commissioner Meal. They do have their statutory role, just like us, and we need to maintain our independentness. And so, I would be inclined, not to move forward with this item. And once the maps are done, they certainly can offer their comments.
This is Commissioner Lerner. I also agree that it would not be the time to have them come in. They have a constitutional time if they can, and I'd like to keep them. But I invite anybody who wants to come to our public meetings to speak at our public meetings, and that would be the appropriate time for any of our elected officials to participate, just like the rest of the public.
Oh, this is Commissioner York. I agree with the previous comments.
Okay, I think the community and the commission has spoken. And so with that, I don't think we need to have a vote because there's nothing that we're going to be doing on that item. Thank you for everybody for your thoughtful conversation. It's sad to me, maybe in another era, the tradition of it would have, been something nice to celebrate and feel. I'm sorry for, our state, our country, that we're not in this position to be able to feel good about that. But maybe with our work, will help instill a little bit more trust and confidence. So with that very quick discussion, we'll move to agenda item number 7, discussion and possible action on legal counsel briefing. There are 3 aspects to this item. One is public records, records retention. That was posted as attachment B, and open meeting law guidance, which was posted as attachment C. I believe that we may be ready for approval for, supporting that and putting it up for public posting. That's one item. A second item is I don't think we're quite ready to have that agreement on ethics guidance. I know I personally have an additional question that I would like legal guidance and counsel on. And so for item number B, I'm going to suggest that we have a vote to go into executive session. I will read the explanation when that is relevant. And then item C, the status of the stock IRC presentation discussion and or approval, as we alluded to earlier, when we're on the road and we're having these public presentations, what kind of presentation we would like to present at all of our public meetings. So maybe we can address the public items first. Regarding agenda item A, I believe that the commissioners have had time to read the guidance on public records and records retention and open meeting law. Any conversation? Okay, I mean, I'm comfortable with it. I think it's the product of many sessions of training and thought I'd like to thank our counsel for their guidance and for their efforts in synthesizing the reflections of the commissioners. And if there's no other, comments, I'll entertain a motion to approve the guidance in attachment B and C on public records and open meeting laws. And for us to post that publicly.
As Commissioner, I move the above.
Do I have a second?
It's Commissioner York, second.
Any further conversation? Okay, with that, we have a motion to approve the guidance on public records and open meeting law guidance. Vice Chair Watchman.
Aye.
Commissioner Meal.
Aye.
Commissioner Lerner.
Aye.
Commissioner York.
Aye.
Commissioner Newberg is an aye, and with that, a 5-0 vote to approve these guidance ethics and put them online for public posting. I'm going to ask counsel before we address item number B, which I'm going to suggest we go into executive session. Is there anything you want to share with the public on item C, status of stock IRC presentation, discussion, and or approval?
Yes, Madam Chair, this is Roy. And I guess I start with a question with Executive Director Schmidt. Was the stock presentation that we put together distributed to the commissioners? Is that something that commissioners have seen?
It was.
Okay. So I think the purpose of the presentation, of course, is to provide, when we go into public meetings and the commissioners, speak and receive comment, to provide some sort of opening presentation that informs the public about the nature of the commission, history of the commission, as well as the constitutional requirements as far as the factors that are listed in the Constitution. So it's basically, in some ways, designed to be an informational document, but then also sort of a conversation starter during the meetings. So I think that's what we try to do with the presentation. But of course, if the commissioners have seen it and think that there's some information that maybe we need to add to it or change, we can certainly do that as a draft for the commissioners' consideration.
I just have a question, Mrs. Lerner. We received it, I think, last night, correct? I know I did not have a huge amount of time to take. I took a quick look at it this morning, but are we going to vote on this now, or are we just going to come back and review it and give feedback over the course of this week? I just wanted to double check on what we were doing at this moment. I'm sorry if I'm.
Thank you, Commissioner Lerner. I think the idea is just to receive feedback this week on the presentation or throughout the week if you have a chance to look at it. And again, if you have comments or changes that you'd like to make to it before we sort of finalize it.
And Commissioner Lerner, this is an administrative task. There does not need to be a vote agreeing to the stock presentation. It's just seeking feedback.
Thank you. Then, if it's okay, I'd like to just take a little bit closer look at it and then provide feedback this week, if that's okay.
Yes, I thought it was a great first draft. I too didn't have sufficient time to really, think not so much what was there, but maybe what wasn't there. And along those lines of what wasn't there, I just want to make sure that, or ask, is it appropriate that the mapping consultants also look at it or share? The mapping consultants have done this a lot. And so just I want to make sure that, as many eyes see it as is appropriate.
Well, Madam Chair, this is Vice Chair Watchman. I think I heard earlier from Director Schmidt that maybe the mapping consultants were coming up with their presentation. So if I'm not mistaken, I think we should combine that so that we have a overview of what the commission is, what the Constitution says, the plan. I think we need a schedule for the entire term between now and December. I didn't see that. And then some data points, which I think the mapping consultants will offer. And so this is in line with what I was suggesting. And so, like you said, good start. But I think we need to have a stock or a canned presentation so that it's available publicly. And we go through that at the opening of our meetings so that people put everybody, the public, on the same page on why we're here, the job that we need to do. And then looking at some of the data points that the consultants will put on the presentation for us. So it's a good start. But I think I'd like to spend some time this week to offer more comment to make the presentation even better. So, thank you.
Excellent. If nobody has any other further comments on agenda item 7C, I'd like to entertain a motion to go into executive session, which will not be open to the public, for the purpose of obtaining legal advice to further implement and/or legal issues pursuant ARS 38-431.03A3. I have, as the commission is working through our final, document about the ethics that we are going to, uphold. I think at least I do, maybe some of us have some additional legal questions that we'd like to take advantage of the opportunity to ask our counsel. So if there's no other comments, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved, and I would add a 5-minute break to that.
You got it.
I'll second. Vice Chair Watchman seconds the motion.
Okay. Any further discussion? Vice Chair Watchman.
Aye.
Commissioner Meal.
Aye.
Commissioner Lerner.
Aye.
Commissioner York.
Aye.
Commissioner Newberg is an aye. With that, a 5-0 vote to have a 5-minute break. And we'll see you in executive session at about 9:13. Welcome back, everybody. I want to make sure that Val is present and on the line, available for our minutes before we move forward with our agenda.
We are live.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I think we have our entire team. Thank you for the public's patience. We had, I thought, a very constructive conversation on, the boundaries of the ethics guidance. At minimum, we have all agreed to adhere to the Arizona State House guidelines as a basis. We have been discussing adding additional ideas and just trying to understand how these guidelines translate into our daily lives. And so, we appreciate the opportunity to, ask our legal counsel some of these very detailed questions. We have some options, and I'm going to turn
Commissioner
Yes.
Newberg, if I may, Madam Chairman, just for clarification for the public record, there was no agreement in executive session. All there was just a discussion around the legal points of clarification. Is that a fair assessment as to what happened in executive session?
Absolutely. I'm sorry if I said agreement. I apologize. Just a great conversation. We're coming back to the public to synthesize what we've learned and to discuss next steps. And we have some options on the next steps. One option is to approve with some amendments that make the House legislative ethic guidelines, unique to us. That's one option. We could table the conversation to next week and do additional study. We can entertain more debate in public right now. And so I open it up to my colleagues to share their thoughts and ideas on this. But I would like to just reassure the public that the questions that we're talking about are that we are adhering to the highest ethics that we can apply to ourselves, which I commend my fellow commissioners on.
This is Commissioner Meal. I strongly think that we should be following the House rules and that those have been vetted and used for many, many years. So I would like to make a motion to redirect counsel to conform the House rules to this commission. And then as an aside, I would invite any commissioner that wants to present amendments to that to be prepared with amendments for next week. Thank you.
Any other thoughts on that?
Do we have a second?
Okay. Do we have a second? Good.
This is Commissioner York, I second.
Okay, let's have discussion.
Commissioner Meal, just for clarity, can you sort of repeat again, you want to have us follow the House rules? You want to just have this come back to next week with a fine-tuned document? I just want to be sure I'm exactly understanding.
Yes, I'm asking counsel to do a revised draft. The House rules has certain words in it that don't make any sense for our commission. They refer to the House and not to our commission as an obvious one. So I'm asking the counsel to just rewrite the House rules to correct things that would make it make sense for our commission linguistically and stylistically and just reference-wise, mostly. And that is the motion. And then certainly recognize that any of us, and I invite any of us that have additional things you'd like to add to it to present that as potential amendments.
Just for just a question on this, the draft that we received has 1 through 3 that I think are taken from those House rules. Do those seem to be appropriate Or do they need to go back and revisit? Because as you said, there's not everything in the House rules that we need to worry about. So I think that the 1 through 3 that we had as the draft document followed some of that, but I just want to be clear, and legal can tell us if they took 1 through 3 from the House rules.
Commissioner. Sorry, Commissioner Lerner. I think on some of the draft that has been kicked around, discusses some of that, and it will definitely be brought. But one thing for sure is that we'll have to publish 1 through 3 of what legal counsel sent out previously as part of the record, and then that's what will be discussed next week. And that's what I think Commissioner Meal is saying is get that out there to the public, and then there'll be debate and possible amendments for next week. Am I missing that, Commissioner Meal?
That is correct to the extent that council, I guess we're also asking you to relook at it, and does that restate the House rules for us in its fullness? And that's a question I have for you, and I don't know the answer to.
Understood.
Yep.
What I'm hearing is the idea of adopting the base rule of the House, which I think was, encompassed in 1 through 3, and that if there are additional items that we would like to add to us uniquely, that any commissioner would like to propose, that we come next week and recommend it as an amendment, and we'll publicly debate it. That's what I'm hearing.
I have a question for council. If a commissioner wants to do an amendment, does that need to be on the agenda, published? Or is that something that can be done at the meeting?
It can be, Commissioner Mills, Brett Johnson. Yeah, it can be done at the meeting where any wording can be changed as part of a modification or amendment, or in addition to that, it does not need to be published ahead of time. It just needs to be something out there for purposes of public comment and the commissioner's consideration.
Thank you.
Commissioner Meal, very similar to the schedule that we just put out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So thoughts about next steps, option of, we could certainly, push a vote right now. We could, push it to next week. Thoughts?
Well, Madam Chair, this is Vice Chair Watchman. There's already a motion and a second on the table to send this back to legal counsel to conform as much as possible to the House rules, and then we go from there. So,
and are we comfortable with this?
I'm comfortable with that. So, and if I need to, or others need to make amendments, then we'll do so at that time.
Unless there is further discussion, I'm comfortable with moving forward on a vote to support that we will have our council maintain the essence of, the House ethics rules, and come back, and we will debate as a commission next week if there are additional amendments. And so with that, I believe that we can open it up to a vote. So Vice Chair Watchman.
Aye.
Commissioner Meal.
Aye.
Commissioner Lerner.
Aye.
Commissioner York.
Aye.
Commissioner Newberg is an aye. And with that, council will synthesize this feedback, and we will work with the House rules as a basic foundation and discuss additional amendments next week. With that, we move to agenda item number 8, discussion and possible action on census data and delay and ways to mitigate its disruption. We have agenda item A, status of state demographer's presentation, and B, status of retaining Arizona professor to discuss impact of privacy differential action by U.S. Census on Arizona data. With that, I will turn it to our council and see if they have some updates to share with us.
Thank you, Commissioner or Chairwoman. Just as an update, the Arizona Commerce Authority, the official state demographer, has accepted to come present on June 22nd, and there'll be a range of data that he's going to be presenting. And then in regard to the point A or point B, I apologize, under Roman numeral 8, we are in the process of finalizing the Arizona-based professor who's able to discuss this point, and we'll have more to report next week.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further questions or discussion, we'll move to agenda item number 9, discussion of future agenda item requests. Anything on the minds of our commissioners outside of follow-up of our earlier items?
This is Commissioner Lerner. I'm curious when we're going to have the mapping consultants back with us. I have a number of questions for them on how things are going to work, the process, just a lot of different questions that I've thought about. And I would love to have the time for us to have a dialogue with them. Not only, presentation, but more where we can actually ask them some questions about how things are going to work. So if we could have them come at some point for that dialogue, that would be great.
Absolutely. I'll make sure they are on the agenda next week and ready to go.
Thank you. It would help as we're thinking through the public meetings to have some of their feedback on how to think about some of these things.
I agree. I think it would be nice to have, them just also, around the tiles and participating. I think that's a great suggestion. Commissioner Meal, are you talking to us or somebody else?
I'm talking to the wall. I would encourage Director Schmidt, and you're probably already doing this, but as you're doing this next draft of meetings, to really engage the mapping consultants and all their experience and how they've done meetings and time and what they recommend on timing and spreading of meetings, and do an invaluable resource to you. So
I definitely will continue talking to them, especially after some of the changes we heard.
Yeah, but Brian, how often are you in touch with them, by the way? I mean, because the rest of us haven't had much interaction. What's your interaction with them like?
Usually every other day. Every other day, just kind of depends on the week.
Okay. We look forward to meeting them. Anything else with future agenda items? Okay, we'll move to agenda item number 10, discussion and possible action on the scheduling of future meetings. We are still planning every Tuesday at 8 a.m. And our travel schedule, as everybody's been informed, is in flux, and we will be working, diligently over the next few days to try to solidify logistics and details. Other than that, is there anything else on meetings from my commissioners? Okay, agenda item number 11, next meeting date will be next Tuesday, the 15th at 8 a.m. And with that, agenda item number 12, closing of public comments. Please note, members of the commission may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.01H, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. And with that, we move to item 13, adjournment. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
This is Commissioner Lerner, so move.
Second,
Commissioner York, seconds.
okay, Vice Chair Watchman,
Aye.
Commissioner Meal,
Aye.
Commissioner Lerner,
Aye.
Commissioner York,
Aye.
Commissioner Newberg is an aye, and with that, we will adjourn. And I thank everybody for your participation, and I look forward to seeing everybody next week at 8 p.m.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend. Go Suns.
Thank you. Bye-bye.